Welcome to another edition of Inside the Umami Medicine. I'm your host, Elena Ford, your Dean and Chief Academic Officer of the University of Miami Middle School of Medicine. Today, we're exploring the evolving landscape of scientific discovery and how we can continue to advance and improve the future of healthcare in the U.S. through academic medicine. To discuss this important topic, I'm joined by one of the most influential leaders in academic medicine, Dr. Elena Fuentes-Afflick, the Chief Scientific Officer of the Association of American Medical Colleges. She has held numerous leadership roles at preeminent medical institutions and organizations as well. Her accolades are so extensive that we don't have time to cover all of them. But let me just highlight just a couple. She's a former president of the American Pediatric Society and the Society of Pediatric Research. She's a member of the Board of Trustees of the American Board of Pediatrics and an elected member of both the National Academy of Medicine and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. In her current role at the WMC, she provides essential leadership and vision regarding issues affecting scientific research, academic medicine, medical schools, and teaching health systems. Dr. Fuentes-Afflick, what a pleasure to welcome you to the studio this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Grateful.
So before we actually dive into the substance of today's topic, please tell the audience a little bit about your journey and how you became the amazing person and leader that you are.
Oh, thank you, Henri. I'm the first physician in my family. So I came into medicine, like so many people, with the idea of helping others. And as you know, I'm trained in pediatrics. And so focusing on children, families, health systems is very much how I look at the world. But in addition to my clinical training, I'm trained in epidemiology and health policy. And I'm very interested in understanding how we use policy to advance medicine, academic medicine.
I'm curious, what made you decide to pursue pediatrics and then epidemiology?
I knew that I was not going to be a surgeon. Unlike you, the OR did not call to me. So I considered internal medicine, I considered pediatrics, but I was really drawn. Children are a joy to take care of, and their optimism, they're fun to take care of, as well as there's so many things that we can do to keep them healthy. And I really believe that if we have healthy children, we will have a healthy future.
And as a pediatric surgeon, we share the similar
Absolutely.
passion for pediatrics, except the OR is missing.
That's right.
But in particular, what triggered the interest to pursue a public health degree in epidemiology? Was there something that you noticed, whether from your experiences growing up or during pediatric training, that made you feel you needed to get into grip of at least understanding the reasons for why we see various diseases?
Well, I think if I could go back in time, I would probably say that I expected to do a traditional subspecialty. And I trained in all of them and I enjoyed them, but not enough to do 3 more years of them. But I worked at a public hospital, much like your Jackson Memorial, and the interface between individuals, families, and systems is so powerful in a public health system. And so I was drawn really to understand how we make choices as a society that impact on health outcomes for our patients. And so I think that's what drove me into epidemiology and policy.
Excellent. So what propelled you into leadership positions in academic medicine?
I'm the oldest of 4, and I think my younger sisters would probably say that that's been a role I've always held. But I would say my first leadership experience was as a chief resident, where you start to understand that interplay between the trainees, you're a bridge to the administration, and I've always really enjoyed multiple roles, multiple responsibilities, and understanding how systems can help people. So I would say my chief residency was really the introduction to that.
I guess that's where you felt to become a chief resident, first of all, you have to demonstrate not only knowledge, proficiency, but leadership skills. So you already had all of that. And so where did it begin? Where did you get all of that skill?
I don't really know. I would say I've always enjoyed having positions of responsibility. And as I say, I think being the oldest of four, it came naturally to me to be in charge of, responsible for someone else. And so I think that's where it came from.
So in other words, you were always giving orders to your younger siblings.
That's probably what they would say.
Let me fast forward a little bit. Now, you were elected to the National Academy of Medicine, Academy of Arts and Sciences. I mean, what propelled you to these spectacular achievements?
Thank you, Henri. I've been honored by these recognitions. I would say that part of it is what I call my tendency to say yes when many others would suggest that I say no. I've always been one to participate on different committees, advisory committees. I've always found it very rewarding, and I believe that it has helped me build a network across specialties. Sometimes we stay too much in our own little clinical specialty, and pediatrics is a relatively small specialty, but I've always enjoyed being part of broader organizations. And I think that, coupled with my accomplishments in my own individual career, were the combination. I'm sorry, I've also benefited tremendously from mentorship throughout my career. I've had powerful people who supported me, and that's also been important.
But I think for the audience, there is a lesson there. You touch on the key point. It's the willingness to serve. You volunteer, and you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. But not only that, but doing the job extremely well. So it's not just a box that you're checking. You're actually having an impact in those committees where you serve. Is that the sense that I'm getting?
I think that's correct. And I've tried to bring what I have, my own unique perspective, to these different organizations. And I guess in pediatrics, probably what I would point to is that at the time, before I was elected to the American Pediatric Society, the president asked me to chair a committee on diversity and inclusion. That was a new idea that he had. And so we developed it. It's now in its 12th year as a committee and has made really important contributions to the society. So I've always tried to really not just do it, but do it in an impactful and lasting way.
And it's not surprising, therefore, that here in the National Academy of Medicine, which has the most brilliant academic,
like you,
the most brilliant academic physicians, scientists, and so forth, and you get to be the secretary of this amazing group, and that really speaks volume. As you try to humble yourself and say, "I'm just a pediatrician," but obviously a powerful leader.
Well, I've really enjoyed, as I say, I believe in organizations. I believe that they are another way for us to impact our future. We know that as physicians, we believe that with our patients. But for me, this is a way at a broader level. And I'm passionate about academic medicine, about the challenges that we face. And so through my work with the National Academy of Medicine, I try to uphold those values.
Now, how would you say your background in research as a clinician, your role in public health, and in all the leadership roles throughout the other major organizations, how have they prepared you for your current role as the Chief Scientific Officer at the AAMC?
Well, I think I draw a lot on my experiences as a researcher, what I learned about how hard it is to do research. You can have really good ideas, and it's still hard to sustain a research career. So I have firsthand experience with that. In my leadership roles at the University of California, San Francisco, before I joined the AAMC, I understood from a school level perspective how hard it is to support people along the way, how you have to help people, whether it's bridge funding or mentorship to support them, but that it is possible and the impact that you can have can be so great. So I think that, along with a broad national view, helped prepare me for this position.
Great. And clearly, this position is more critical than ever, given the times that we're living in. But let's talk a little bit more generally. How is the WMC supporting or cultivating excellence in academic medicine? And you can talk a little bit about your role in promoting that as well.
The AAMC, as you know, supports all of the mission areas of academic medicine. So I can speak mostly about the research and science area since that's what I do. And through that work, we largely focus on research and science policy, working closely with the government, with the federal agencies to ensure that our policies promote research and science. The tenor of that work has changed in the last few months, but we are advocating every day for the value and the impact of the research and science that is conducted at our institutions, like the Miller School of Medicine.
And for the uninitiated, please tell them, why is that important? Why should the American people worry or focus on something like that?
I would say that research and science and the impact that American universities have had, which have been supported through the federal government, have impacted every American family.
How so?
Well, if you or someone in your family has received a vaccine, if you have cancer, if you have asthma, if you have diabetes, if you have heart disease of any kind, you have benefited from the advances in treatment. Most of us know someone from our growing up times who passed away of a disease that is now a chronic disease that we can treat or even prevent. So that comes about through research. And we know that it takes time and effort and money to do research, but that's how the research enterprise has benefited the American people.
So I remember growing up, people were just dropping dead from heart attacks and cardiac arrest just about anywhere in the subway and everything else. But now, almost every place I go, there is an automatic defibrillator. And did that just happen to come out of thin air, or is this?
No, of course not. This is from decades and decades of research where people develop the techniques. First we understand the disease process, then we develop treatments, then hopefully we develop preventive interventions, and then we apply it at the public health level to understand if you have defibrillators at the stadium, on the subway, etc., then you can have bystanders help the process. But this is all based on decades of research that advances our knowledge.
And let's talk about breast cancer. Here's another one where people were dying right and left. But now we have women living with breast cancer for 20 years and beyond.
Exactly.
How did that come about?
Well, that came
with their
about-
breasts.
Exactly. That came about again from understanding what is the basic pathogenesis of breast cancer. We know that there are hormonal pathways, non-hormonal. Our understanding is so much greater. So now we have better treatments for when it is diagnosed and earlier imaging and interventions. But now we talk about prevention and really early identification of who is at risk so that we can prevent the cancer in the first place.
And we know that some ethnicities are impacted more heavily. So, as a Jewish, so we need to be able to understand the pathogenesis of disease, why it develops, and we need to target groups where we know it's prevalent.
Exactly.
So that's research.
That is totally research. It starts from identifying, often physicians in their practice will notice a pattern. And then they often work with their research-oriented colleagues to say, I'm noticing a pattern. Is it true? Is it valid? So then there's that stage. And then you get further and further into understanding, well, what is the basis? And that's where the laboratory colleagues come into play.
And as an epidemiologist, you certainly can relate to that because there are certain diseases that may be more prevalent in a particular community.
Exactly.
So that triggers the need to understand what is happening.
Exactly.
And that's research.
That's research. Asking a question, finding an answer, and then applying it. That's research.
So that's crucial for the health of the American people.
It is absolutely crucial, and it has made such a difference.
So how does WMC support the research agenda for academic medicine?
Well, we support the research agenda, first of all, by working with all of our leaders in academic medicine, people like you, to support and brag about the accomplishments that you are bringing to the research enterprise. But we also work with Congress through our government relations team and with agencies like the NIH to say, This is why it's important we advocate for their research funding. We provide input when they ask us about the input for what are the priority areas. And then we turn to people like you to ask what are the priority topics.
I've been struck by the fact that in many instances, since we have a NCI designated cancer center here at the University of Miami Middle School of Medicine and U Health, we see a number of patients who are just desperate. Their cancer is progressing and there is nothing available for them out there in the community. But then they come and we put them on a clinical trial, and sometimes we provide some immunotherapy, and then boom, what seemed to be hopeless turns out to be, well, I'm not going to say a cure, but they end up living disease-free for several years. So this research thing in clinical trials clearly must be making a great difference in the lives of so many destitute people.
Absolutely. Because as you know, there's a limit to what standard therapy can offer, but we know that that's not enough. We want to be able to cure and prevent diseases. So clinical trials are important. You raised that example. Children's cancer is one of the best examples because what in the 1960s, leukemia, which is the most common form of childhood cancer, children died very, very quickly. And now children, because of advances made through clinical trials and basic science discovery, children enroll in clinical trials for the most part for cancer treatment. And many children, we now talk about surviving childhood cancer, and we have to train our adult colleagues to care for the childhood survivors of cancer. That is a real privilege and related to research.
And as pediatric specialists, we obviously can relate to the importance of investing in cancer research to improve the health of our children, because if they're dying, then there is no future. Then you won't have the adults. So treating or targeting diseases of childhood has to be a priority. And that's more impetus for continuing the research.
Absolutely.
That was not just a free plug for pediatrics. So it is important.
It is a great field.
Now, the U.S. has for long been a leader in science and research on the global scale. What must we do to continue to lead in that domain?
The reason that the U.S. has been the global leader in research is because we are the global leader in federal funding for research. So the funding that NIH provides to campuses all around the country, including your own institution, make the difference. Investigators all around the country are making impactful discoveries. But that requires that federal partnership with our institution. So we need to ensure that the NIH has robust funding. That is one of our priorities within the AAMC. And so we are advocating that message that we need to continue supporting NIH and other funders like the NSF and others. But that is the mechanism by which we have been able to make impactful discoveries and be the global leader in biomedical research.
So in other words, the National Institutes of Health
National Institutes
has been the engine
Yes.
that has catalyzed most of those famous discoveries that have improved the health of the American people in recent decades.
Yes.
So it makes sense that we need to continue to invest
Yes.
in research if we are going to continue to improve the health of the American people.
Exactly.
So why do you think there is such an erosion of trust in medicine and science among the lay people?
I think there are many reasons. I think in general, people don't understand science as well as they should. Some of that may start early in life in science education in schools where children may not learn about science or may not understand how exciting science can be, how interesting it can be. And sometimes when people don't understand something, they don't trust it. I think there have been other issues that have impacted the relationship between doctors and patients. We now know that people can get all kinds of information, some through the internet, some through other forums. And so sometimes they come into the physician's office with a lot of questions and doubting what the doctor is recommending or why the doctor would recommend a particular treatment. So I think it's multifactorial. I think it's going to take a long time working with people who understand how we can communicate more clearly, more effectively, to really understand what are our patients' questions, what are their doubts. Then we can address them more plainly and more effectively. But from just a research perspective, not just the scientists, we also need to understand, why would people question the premise of research? Why would they doubt whether we were applying methodology? If you've obtained research funding, especially federal funding, you know you have to go through a rigorous review process. So your procedures are carefully scrutinized according to the best standards that we have. They're monitored to make sure that you are doing things properly. Our peer review process also is another level of review. So from an insider perspective, I have great confidence in what we do and that we are doing it ethically and scientifically rigorously. But somehow that message is not being translated to the public. So I think that's incumbent on us to be able to communicate more clearly, more convincingly, and really elicit their concerns.
You make a key point there. So when you are looking at a research project, it has undergone so much scrutiny. First, at the institution where the research
Yep.
is, or where it's being originated, but then it has to go through a peer review process. So a bunch of other experts look at it, discuss it, and decide whether or not it has merit and whether it's doable or feasible. And not only that, it's significant enough to ultimately contribute to the health of society. So this is not just a frivolous decision. This is not waste, fraud, and abuse.
No. I am very confident that all those steps in the review process, along with the reporting that you make when you have a research grant, that these are carefully monitored investments. People understand these are investments that are being made in their research. So when you're an investigator, you take that very seriously and you want to do the work and have an impact.
Excellent. So given the public perception and some attacks by, in some cases, some elected officials on academic medicine in general and science and higher education, how are you, as the chief scientific officer, trying to make a difference in this in this discussion?
I am doing as many media interviews as I can, interfacing with different groups. The AAMC also partners with other groups, but I am trying to do media presentations on these topics to simplify, if you will, what is science, what is research, why does it make a difference, how has it impacted perhaps you or your family, and why is federal investment in research essential for the health of the American people. So I welcome new opportunities, but I'm trying my best.
And that's why in this podcast.
Exactly.
So great. I firmly believe in the notion that we achieve our best together. So how can the academic community in general partner with you to advance the cause of academic medicine?
What we look to the academic community is what's going on, how can we support you? So understanding what are the challenges that you face, what are your priorities, how can we advance them is really important. As you know, we have a number of meetings and conferences where we bring people together because we know that people can create collaborations and networks that will amplify their work. So we go very heavy on our convening function of bringing people together to advance health.
You touched on the fact that we need to communicate the benefits of academic medicine more effectively. How do we do that? Where do you think the disconnect comes from, and how do we begin to bridge that gap?
I think it starts from we need to watch our vocabulary. In medicine, we get so excited about learning the terminology and the jargon that then I think we use it too much. And our patients don't understand it. If we say that something is positive or negative, they don't know if that's good or bad. We have to be able to translate that for them. So I think we often use those shortcuts because they're convenient for us, but not necessarily good for our patients. But when it comes to addressing issues of mistrust or distrust, I think as a profession, we need to work with communications professionals to understand better What are ways of speaking that we need to use? Because just talking the way that we generally talk is not helping. So I think we need to learn some new tools.
This is exciting because we have our school of communication, and as part of our novel new curriculum, we've made all sorts of key changes. But maybe as part of our medicine as a profession component, we need to bring experts from the school of communication to effectively tell our students, but maybe even residents, how to deliver the message, how to effectively communicate with the patients and share the significance of what it is that we are proposing.
I think that would be good. As you know, sometimes we're so rushed, we don't often really give patients the chance to tell us what's on their mind. We've all had that experience when you're out the door and then the patient tells you something really important. So we need to learn new ways to communicate.
So how are you looking through your prism at the future, and what do you see? How do you see the role of science evolving, and how are we going to attract talented young minds to conduct research?
We are always evolving in science. And right now, with our emphasis both on public health and population health, as well as precision health, across the whole spectrum, there's so many exciting advances. I think it's a wonderful time to be pursuing a career in research and science. But right now, at this moment of uncertainty that we are facing, I'm worried that young people contemplating a career in science may be dissuaded. They may think, oh, I should do something else because I don't know what's happening there. So I think right now we need to continue to encourage young people to bring their talents into research and science, that there are exciting opportunities for them to make an impact. And I hope that we will be able to do that.
And what's your word of advice for that young undergraduate who's about to graduate tomorrow, and talking about just from college, but who's contemplating a career in the sciences? Is there hope?
I think there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of optimism. There's so much promise in science. We are making new discoveries every day. We have more and more interdisciplinary approaches. We appreciate the talents and perspectives that people bring. So I think there's so much hope.
What keeps you motivated given all the challenges that we face?
I believe that academic medicine and medicine is the promise for the future, that we have important problems, but we also have tools to address those problems. And I know that working with great people, great institutions like the one that you lead is part of the strategy to make that kind of improvement. That's what motivates me.
It's so inspiring. Now, you are here to deliver the commencement address to the graduating class, the great class of 2025 at the Miller School of Medicine tomorrow. So without stealing your thunder and then getting a preview of the talk, what advice do you have for these young, bright-eyed, amazingly talented, passionate young men and women who are about to embark on the next phase of their medical journey?
My advice would be that medicine is a glorious career and that you can't always anticipate what opportunities you will have. So you need to be open to opportunity as it comes. I also believe that we have opportunities for transformation, personal transformation in ourselves, in our patients, but that we also need to embrace a spirit of humility.
Wow. What an exclamation point. I got to say, this is such a joy. I mean, you're a real inspiration. And I know that individuals who listen to this podcast will understand why you are as brilliant as you are and why you are the right person to lead these science initiatives at the WMC at this point.
Thank you very much.
We're fortunate to have you. And thank you so much for taking the time to share with the audience your thoughts.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this has been another episode of Inside UMiami Medicine with the amazing, incomparable Dr. Elena Fuentes-Afflick. Thank you so very much for being here. Until next time.